The African savanna stretched like a golden carpet beneath the scorching sun. The hot wind whispered through the twisted trees, carrying the dry scent of earth and the distant stench of death. At the heart of this unforgiving landscape, a group of lions lay scattered across the ground, victims of a brutal battle. Among them, a lioness, once strong and powerful, now lay lifeless. Her once vigilant eyes were empty, her body motionless, leaving behind something still fighting to survive. Two tiny cubs, weak and helpless, hidden within the tall grass. The cubs, their frail bodies trembling and covered in dust, continued to call for their mother, unaware that she would never answer again. Their cries were swallowed by the suffocating silence of the plains as vultures circled above, sensing the inevitable. Without protection, without milk, and without the fierce strength of their mother to shield them, their chances of survival were close to none. The rival lions that had slaughtered their pride could return at any moment, and if not them, the hyenas or jackals would surely finish what was left. Their fate seemed sealed. Then, something unexpected happened. Moving silently through the dry vegetation, a shadow emerged. Too small to be a lioness, too swift to be a common predator. Her amber eyes glowed under the sun as she approached the defenseless cubs. It was a female lynx, a solitary creature accustomed to hunting in the dark and avoiding the dangers of the great beasts. Her instincts told her to move on, to not get involved in something that was not her battle. But there was something there, something that made her hesitate. The lynx wasn't just observing the lion cubs. She was feeling something deep inside her. Just days ago, her own litter had been brutally taken by hyenas. The emptiness in her chest had silently consumed her ever since. The scent of these cubs, the faint sound of their cries, the desperate way they clung to each other, awakened something she thought she had lost forever. In an act that defied the laws of nature, the lynx stepped closer and sniffed the cubs carefully. Instinctively, they sought warmth from her body. She could have ignored them, continued on her way, and let the savanna decide their fate. But in that moment, something greater spoke louder. Her mother's heart, even shattered, still beat strong enough to make an unthinkable choice. She would take them in. She would raise them as her own. She would protect those who, in every possible way, should have been her natural enemies. But what the lynx did not know was that this decision would bring consequences she could never have foreseen, and that the ending of this unlikely family story would break the hearts of all who witnessed it. The lynx carried the cubs carefully, one by one, between her jaws. Their tiny bodies were limp from exhaustion, their fur still stained with dust and the scent of death. She moved swiftly, her senses heightened, knowing that any delay could mean disaster. The savanna was merciless to the weak. Every shadow could hide a predator, and every moment spent in the open was a risk. But despite the danger, she pressed forward, determined to find shelter before nightfall. After what felt like an eternity, she reached a secluded rocky den, hidden beneath a thick canopy of shrubs. It was a place she had once prepared for her own litter, a safe haven that now felt empty and haunted by memories. As she placed the cubs down on the soft bed of dried grass, they whimpered, their tiny paws reaching instinctively for her warmth. They were hungry, fragile, and utterly dependent on her. And that was when she realized the first cruel truth of her decision. She had no milk to give them. Her body ached with the absence of her own lost kittens, but she was no lioness. She could not nourish these cubs the way their mother would have. For a brief moment, she hesitated, questioning if she had made a mistake. Would her attempt to save them only prolong their suffering? But then one of the cubs, the smaller of the two, nestled against her fur and let out a soft, pleading cry. Something inside her hardened. No, she would not give up. She had already lost too much. She would not lose them too. Determined, she left them safely tucked in the den and ventured back into the wild. She would do what she did best, hunt. The night was falling, and with it came the ruthless predators of the savanna. But she was fast, agile, and knew how to move unseen. If she could not feed them with her own body, she would find food another way. Hours passed, and finally, she returned, dragging the fresh carcass of a small hare in her jaws. It was not much, but it was enough. She tore the meat into tiny pieces, nudging the cubs gently, encouraging them to eat. At first, they were confused. Lion cubs were meant to nurse for weeks before transitioning to solid food. But hunger was a powerful teacher. Slowly, hesitantly, they began to eat. The lynx watched as their strength returned, if only slightly. It would be a battle every day, a fight against nature itself, but she would do whatever it took to keep them alive. As the night deepened, the cubs curled against her, their breathing slow and peaceful. The lynx kept her eyes open, her ears alert to every sound outside the den. She had given them a chance, but she knew this was only the beginning. Sooner or later, the wild would come for them, and when it did, she would be ready. Days turned into weeks, and against all odds, the lion cubs survived under the care of the lynx. She hunted tirelessly, bringing back small prey, hares, birds, and sometimes even lizards, to keep them fed. It was not the diet of a lion, but it was enough to keep them alive. Their once frail bodies began to grow stronger, their legs steadier, their eyes brighter. But with their strength came another challenge: instinct. The cubs were not like her. They were born to be kings of the savannah, to roar and rule, and no matter how much she tried to raise them as her own, she could not change what they were meant to become. First, it was small things. The way they played, tumbling and pouncing with a force she was not used to. They would bite and claw at each other, not out of aggression, but out of instinct, practicing skills that one day would make them hunters of the highest order. When she disciplined them with a sharp hiss or a swat of her paw, they would look at her with confusion, as if sensing that she was different. But they still followed her, still nuzzled against her at night, still sought her warmth when they were scared. She was all they knew, and for now that was enough. But as they grew, so did the gap between them. The larger cub, whom she had named Tao, was bolder, more restless. He would wander farther from the den, testing his strength, chasing after shadows as if preparing for battles only he could see. The smaller cub, Keto, was different, more cautious, more dependent on her. He was the one who still curled against her at night, the one who still looked to her with unquestioning trust. But even he was changing. They were lions, and no matter how much she loved them, she could not teach them to be what they truly were. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in streaks of orange and crimson, the lynx watched as Tao stalked a young gazelle in the distance. Her heart pounded. This was different from the playful hunts they had practiced. He was crouched low, his muscles tense, his golden eyes locked on his target. She could see it. He was becoming a hunter in his own right, something she could never truly teach him. The moment he pounced, missing by mere inches, and the gazelle darted away, she felt both pride and fear. He was growing into what he was meant to be, and soon he might no longer need her. That night, as they lay in the den, the lynx felt the weight of inevitability pressing down on her. She had fought against nature, had done the impossible, had kept them alive. But she could not hold onto them forever. The world outside their hidden sanctuary was waiting, calling to them with a voice she could not silence. She knew that one day they would have to leave her. And when that time came, she did not know if she would be strong enough to let them go. But the savannah did not wait for anyone, and neither did fate. The cubs were no longer fragile creatures struggling to survive. Their limbs had grown stronger, their muscles more defined. Tao, the larger of the two, was now nearly the size of the lynx herself, and Keto was not far behind. Their playful wrestling had turned into real displays of strength, their once clumsy paws now striking with precision. The lynx watched them with quiet admiration, but also with growing unease. She had raised them, protected them, but she knew the truth. They were lions, and lions did not belong in the shadows, hiding from the world. It was Tao who first began to push the boundaries of their small world. He wandered farther from the den, testing his independence, sniffing the air as if something beyond their sanctuary was calling him. The lynx followed at first, trying to keep him close, but she could not hold him back forever. One day, he did not return before nightfall. She searched frantically, her heart pounding, until she found him near a watering hole, watching a distant pride of lions drinking under the moonlight. His golden eyes gleamed with something she had never seen before: recognition. He did not know them, but something deep within him did. From that moment on, Tao changed. He was restless, his playful energy replaced by an undeniable longing. He would sit at the edge of their den at night, staring into the vastness of the savannah, his ears twitching at distant roars. Even Keto, always the more cautious one, seemed drawn to something unseen, though he still clung to the safety of the lynx's presence. She felt the shift, the silent force pulling them away from her. It was as if nature itself was reminding them of who they were meant to be. One evening, as the sun bled into the horizon, the lynx found Tao standing on a rocky ledge, his gaze fixed on a group of young lions playing in the distance. His tail flicked with anticipation, his body tense with an emotion he did not yet understand. She called to him with a low, urgent sound, but this time he did not turn back. Instead, he let out a sound she had never heard from him before. A deep, unsteady growl, the first hint of a roar. It was weak, unpracticed, but it sent a chill through her. He was answering a call that she could never truly be a part of. That night, as they huddled together in the den, the lynx felt the weight of an unspoken truth. She had given them everything: her love, her protection, her very sense of purpose. But she could not change what was written in their blood. Tao would not stay much longer. He was too strong, too restless, too much a lion to remain in the shelter of a creature that was never meant to be his mother. And when he left, would Keto follow? Or would he stay behind, torn between the only family he had ever known and the one he was meant to find? The lynx did not have the answers. She only knew that their time together was running out. And deep down, she feared that when they left, she would once again be alone. The air was different that morning. The sky, once a comforting canvas of soft blues and warm golds, felt heavier, as if the savannah itself sensed what was coming. The lynx stirred before the sun had fully risen, her sharp ears catching every subtle sound around the den. But something was missing. She turned her head and immediately felt her chest tighten. Tao was gone. His usual spot beside her was empty, his scent already fading. She rose quickly, her heartbeat hammering against her ribs. Keto, still curled in a tight ball beside her, barely stirred, but she knew it was only a matter of time before he noticed as well. She stepped outside the den, her eyes scanning the vast landscape. The morning mist curled over the grass, and in the distance, she saw him, a lone figure walking toward the horizon. He wasn't running, he wasn't hesitating. He was leaving. The lynx's instincts screamed at her to chase after him, to bring him back, to protect him. But she did not move. She knew this moment had been coming for weeks. Tao had always been the stronger, the braver of the two. He was following something greater than her, something she could never give him. His blood, his nature, his destiny, it was pulling him toward his own kind. And she had no place in that world. Behind her, a small, broken sound made her turn. Keto had woken up. His wide, innocent eyes darted between her and the fading figure of his brother. Confusion twisted into fear, and then, suddenly, he bolted. His small paws kicked up dust as he sprinted after Tao, his desperate cries breaking the morning silence. The lynx moved without thinking, chasing after him, her heart pounding. She caught up to Keto just as Tao turned to look back, his expression unreadable. For a long moment, the three of them stood in the golden light of dawn, the space between them heavier than words. Keto was trembling, his tiny body pressed against her, his instincts warring with his emotions. He wanted to follow Tao. He wanted to stay with her. He didn't know where he belonged. Tao, on the other hand, did not look back again. Without a sound, he turned and disappeared over the ridge, his golden fur blending into the endless plains. The lynx felt Keto's body shudder against hers, his breathing uneven, his world unraveling in front of him. And all she could do was press her head gently against his, whispering a silent promise. You are not alone. Not yet. But deep in her heart, she knew this was only the beginning of the end. The days after Tao's departure were filled with silence. The lynx and Keto moved through the savannah as they always had, but something was missing. The absence of his brother weighed heavily on Keto, and though he still followed the lynx, his energy had dimmed. He no longer pounced at insects or playfully swatted at her tail. Instead, he spent long hours staring out across the plains, ears twitching at every distant sound, as if expecting Tao to return. But they both knew he wouldn't. The lynx tried to distract Keto the only way she knew how, by keeping him busy. She pushed him to hunt, nudging him toward prey, making him chase and learn. But his heart wasn't in it. He ate because he had to, not because he wanted to. He followed her because he had nowhere else to go, not because he belonged with her. And deep down, the lynx understood. She had fought against nature, had tried to raise him as her own, but no amount of love could change what he was meant to be. Then, one evening, it happened. A deep, commanding roar echoed across the plains. It was distant, but unmistakable, the call of a lion. Keto froze. His ears perked, his muscles tensed, and for the first time in weeks, his eyes shone with something other than sadness. He turned his head toward the sound, his breath unsteady. The lynx watched him, her heart aching with the knowledge of what was coming. This was the moment she had dreaded, the moment she had always known would arrive. Keto looked at her, hesitation flickering in his gaze. He was still young, still uncertain. He wanted to stay, but the call of his kind was too strong. The lynx stepped forward and gently brushed her head against his. A silent farewell. She had given him everything she could, but she could not give him what he truly needed. His own kind, his own future. When she pulled away, he hesitated for only a moment longer before turning toward the sound. His steps slow at first, then faster. He never looked back. The lynx stood alone, watching until his small golden figure disappeared into the tall grass. The wind rustled through the trees, whispering through her fur, filling the space where his warmth had once been. She had lost him just as she had lost Tao. Just as she had lost her own litter. But this time, the loss was different. This time, it was not a tragedy. It was simply life. With a deep breath, she turned away, slipping back into the shadows. The savannah had taken everything from her, but she had given them a chance. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. For the first time in months, the lynx was alone. No tiny paws stumbled behind her. No playful growls filled the air. No warm bodies curled beside her at night. The den, once filled with life, now felt hollow and abandoned. She had always been a solitary creature, but this solitude felt different, heavier, colder. She had spent so long fighting to keep the cubs alive, to give them a future, that she had forgotten what it meant to live only for herself. Now, without them, she felt like a ghost wandering through the savannah. Her instincts told her to move on, to leave the den behind and find a new place to call home. But something held her back. Every scent, every sound, every shadow reminded her of them. She would wake in the night, expecting to feel the warmth of Keto pressed against her, only to find emptiness. She would pause during a hunt, glancing back as if Tao might suddenly come bounding through the grass. But they were gone, and she was left with nothing but memories. The savannah, however, had no mercy for grief. Life continued, indifferent to her sorrow. The rains came, turning the golden grasslands into a lush paradise, bringing new life to the land. Herds of gazelle and zebra roamed freely, and predators stalked the shadows once more. The lynx forced herself to adapt, to hunt, to survive. But the fire that had once burned within her, the fierce determination to protect, to nurture, had faded. She was surviving, but she was not truly living. One evening, as she rested on a rocky ledge, watching the sun sink into the horizon, a distant sound caught her attention. A deep, rolling roar, strong, commanding. It was far away, but unmistakable. Lions. Her ears twitched, her heart clenched. Was it Tao? Was it Keto? Had they found a place among their own kind? She would never know. She could never follow them, never see what they had become. The paths they walked now were not meant to cross with hers. All she could do was hope that they had found what she could not give them. With a slow breath, the lynx rose to her feet and turned away from the sound. There was no place for her among lions, just as there had never been a place for lions among her kind. She had defied nature, and for a time she had won. But in the end, nature had reclaimed what was hers. As she disappeared into the tall grass, the wind whispered through the savanna, carrying her scent away, as if she had never been there at all. The lynx wandered the savanna with no true destination. The world around her remained unchanged, endless grasslands stretching beneath the vast sky, herds grazing in the golden light of dawn, the distant roars of lions echoing through the hills. But to her, everything felt different. She had spent so much time fighting for Tao and Keto, protecting them, feeding them, teaching them to survive. Now, with them gone, her purpose had vanished. The silence was unbearable. She hunted because she had to. She moved because instinct demanded it. But the fire inside her had dimmed, reduced to a faint ember. She no longer felt the same urgency, the same hunger for life. She had fought against nature and lost, not in a cruel or violent way, but in the quiet, inevitable way that time takes everything away. She had always known the cubs would leave, yet she had never prepared for what would come after. Days blurred into nights, and the lynx grew thinner. She had never been a creature of packs or prides. Her kind lived alone. But now, true loneliness settled in, deeper than anything she had ever known. The savanna was vast, full of life, yet she had never felt so small. The world continued without her, uncaring of her sorrow. One evening, as she padded silently through the tall grass, she paused at a familiar spot, the ridge where she had last seen Keto. His scent was long gone, washed away by the wind and the rains. She sat there for a long time, watching the sun sink below the horizon, the sky painted in deep reds and golds. Somewhere out there, the cubs she had raised were growing into the lions they were meant to be. She would never know their fate, but she liked to believe they were strong, that they had found a home among their own kind. As darkness fell, the lynx finally rose and walked away, leaving only faint paw prints in the dust. Soon, the wind would erase even those, as if she had never been there at all. But she had been. For a brief, impossible moment, she had been a mother to lions. And though the world would forget, she never would. The seasons changed, and the savanna moved forward as it always had. The lynx adapted, as she was meant to, but something inside her remained untouched by time. She still hunted, still stalked through the tall grass with the same silent precision, but the world around her no longer held the same meaning. The den she had once shared with the cubs had been abandoned, its walls of rock now cold and empty. She no longer returned to it. It was not her home anymore. Perhaps it never had been. One evening, as she roamed the outskirts of a dried riverbed, a scent on the wind made her stop. It was faint, nearly lost among the many smells of the land, but it was unmistakable. Lion. Her body tensed, her instincts screaming at her to retreat, but something held her in place. It was not the scent of just any lion. It was familiar. It was them. Cautiously, she moved forward, her heart pounding with something she could not name. The air was thick with the smell of a pride, a new one, strong, territorial. And among them, woven between the layers of dust and musk, were traces of the two cubs she had once called her own. They were no longer cubs. They were grown, thriving, part of the world they were always meant to belong to. The lynx did not move closer. She did not try to see them. What would she do if she did? She was nothing more than a ghost of their past now, a forgotten chapter in a life they had moved beyond. If they saw her, would they even remember? Would they come to her? Or would instinct tell them she was nothing more than another creature of the wild, separate, distant, unimportant? She did not know the answer, and she did not want to find out. Instead, she turned away. The wind carried their scent as she walked in the opposite direction, each step taking her farther from them. She had done what no creature before her had done. She had raised lions, and now they were where they were meant to be. It was enough. It had to be enough. The lynx never returned to that place again. She moved on, as she always had, disappearing into the endless expanse of the savannah. The world did not slow for her grief, nor did it acknowledge the weight of what she had lost. The sun still rose over the golden plains, the herds still migrated with the changing seasons, and the lions she had once called her own continued their journey without her. But something within her had changed. She was not the same creature who had once walked these lands alone. She no longer searched for traces of them, no longer paused at the sound of distant roars. Yet, in quiet moments, when the wind rustled through the tall grass or the night stretched silent and endless, she would remember. She would close her eyes and feel their warmth beside her, hear their tiny growls and playful pounces, relive the impossible days when she had defied nature itself. They had been hers, if only for a time, and though they would forget her, she would never forget them. One evening, as she rested beneath the shade of an acacia tree, she watched a mother gazelle and her newborn fawn moving carefully through the grass. The way the mother nudged her child forward, the way she positioned herself between danger and the fragile life she had brought into the world. It was instinct. The same instinct that had driven the lynx to protect two orphaned cubs who should have never been hers. Love, in its purest form, was not bound by blood, nor by species. Simply was. The wind shifted, carrying the distant echo of a lion's roar. The lynx's ears twitched, but she did not turn to look. Perhaps it was them. Perhaps it wasn't. It no longer mattered. They had found their place in the world, and she had found hers. She had given them the strength to survive, and now, she too would continue to survive. Not as a mother to lions, not as something unnatural, but as what she had always been, a survivor of the wild. As the last light of day faded from the sky, the lynx rose and disappeared into the tall grass, her figure melting into the vastness of the savannah. There would be no stories told of her, no memory of what she had done. But the lives she had saved, the love she had given, it had mattered. And even as the world moved forward, indifferent to her existence, she knew, in her heart, that she had made a difference. And that was enough.